What's up guys, Ame here and welcome to the Malygos boss guide. Let's get into it. Upon entering the raid, you will appear on a platform floating in space with an orb in the middle. What you're going to do to summon Malygos is use your key to the focusing iris that you got from Saffron in Naxxramas. This is a no-nonsense raid, there's no trash, just straight to the boss.
Pledge fealty to me, and perhaps I will not slaughter you for your insolence.
The fight will start with Malygos flying down onto the platform. The tank will pick him up and position him on the edge of the inner circle, with the raid in the dead center of the platform. Malygos, unlike other dragons, does not have a tail swipe, so don't worry if you ever end up behind him. What he does have is Arcane Breath, a frontal cone breath that leaves a debuff on those hit with it, causing them to explode and do AoE damage to those around them. This will only be hitting the tank in this setup, but does a lot of damage, so just make sure your heals are keeping them up. The other ability he will use is Arcane Storm. He will target a random player and fire arcane missiles at them, dealing significant damage. Healers, make sure to just keep that targeted player alive. At regular intervals throughout the fight, a portal will appear off in space and pop out a power spark. These sparks will slowly move toward Malygos, and if they reach him, will increase his damage by 50% for a short time. But if the raid kills them before they reach Malygos, they will leave a patch of electricity on the ground where killed that when stood in will increase players' damage by 50%. The power sparks can be stunned, rooted, death gripped, you name it. Death Knights should death grip them into the raid stack where they can chains of ice them, or you can stun lock them so they die on top of the raid. If a spark spawns so that it would have to go through Malygos to get to the raid, the tank can rotate the boss around the inner circle to make it easier for the raid to kill the spark. The damage buff also stacks, and is why you want to stack up for this phase so that all the power sparks die in the same spot. Lastly, Malygos will occasionally take off from the ground and whip up a whirling vortex of arcane energy, lifting the raid into the air, spinning them around, and dealing arcane damage every second for 10 seconds. During this time, only instant cast abilities are able to be used, so do your best to pump the boss and keep the raid topped off. One cheeky strategy you can do here is have paladins use concentration aura with aura mastery to allow casters to cast during the vortex. Once the vortex ends, head back to the same spot so that you can stack the sparks.
Few have experienced the pain I will now inflict upon you.
At 50% health, Malygos will take to the sky and start raining damage from above. As he transitions into phase 2, you'll be targetable for about 20 to 25 seconds before going immune for the remaining duration of the phase. Lust, cooldowns, potions, everything should be used right here for some extra damage that will speed up the remainder of the fight. While untargetable, he will continue to use Arcane Storm, targeting random raid members and peppering them with arcane missiles. He also won't be alone in this phase. Nexus Lords and Scions of Eternity will descend from the sky on floating discs. The Nexus Lords will need to be picked up by a tank on the ground and burned down by the raid and have two abilities: a single target arcane shock that does arcane damage, and a haste buff that increases movement, casting, and attack speed by 100% for 15 seconds. This ability should be dispelled or spell stolen by you mages to keep the tanks from taking too much damage. Unlike the Nexus Lords, the Scions will continue flying in the air on their cool discs. They have no aggro table, and they will randomly target a raid member and cast Arcane Barrage, dealing a significant amount of damage. When either of these mobs die, their disc will fall to the ground, allowing melee DPS to hop on them and fly up and kill the Scions flying around in the air. During this phase, purple anti-magic zones will periodically appear on the platform, reducing all damage taken while standing inside by 50%. These zones will shrink over time and eventually disappear. The reason these shields are needed is because at regular intervals in this phase, a raid warning Malygos takes a deep breath will go out, and Malygos will use deep breath, dealing large amounts of arcane damage every second for 5 seconds. If you are not under the purple protective shields when this goes out, chances are you're dead. When moving between the anti-magic zones, just make sure that you aren't moving when this ability is about to be cast, as it will lead to a wipe. Also note that the Scions and Nexus Lords do arcane damage as well, so the raid should position themselves under the anti-magic zones at all times. The kill priority is range should focus the Scions, while the melee and tanks kill the Nexus Lords. As the adds die and discs become available, have your melee DPS fly up and help DPS the Scions down. Players flying around in the air also don't have to worry about the deep breath, as anyone not on the ground won't be affected by it. Once all the adds are dead, phase 3 will begin.
Enough! If you intend to reclaim Azeroth's magic, then you have it.
At this point, Malygos gets fed up and decides to just destroy the platform you're standing on and send you into the surrounding cosmos. Luckily for us, the red dragon fight is here to save the day, as every raid member will land safely on the back of a dragon. This phase is a vehicle encounter phase, where you will control these dragons to finish off Malygos. Each dragon comes equipped with 6 abilities, 2 damage abilities, 2 heals, a shield, and a movement speed buff. These drakes are like rogues in that every ability costs energy to use, with some abilities granting combo points while other abilities are finishing moves and use up those combo points. For damage dealers, Flame Spike will be your primary ability, granting 1 combo point per use. Engulf in Flames is then the finishing move that will ignite Malygos with a dot that does damage every 3 seconds. This ability also stacks if the dot is refreshed before the dot expires. The key for damage dealers here is to stack the dot as fast as possible to get the most amount of damage out. In order to do that, your rotation will be 2 Flame Spikes followed by 1 Engulf in Flames. That's it. Press 1 twice and then 2 over and over. For healers, Revivify is the ability that will give you combo points, which is a stacking hot that can stack up to 5 times. And Life Burst is the finishing move, healing for more and lasting longer per combo point. Quick important note for the healers. Combo points here work like combo points for any other class. When you use Revivify, the combo points are assigned to the target that you used that ability on. So if you switch targets, you won't be able to use Life Burst as you won't have combo points on that target until you build them back up. The 5th ability is Flame Shield, which surrounds you and reduces all damage taken by 80% and lasts longer for every combo point used. And then lastly, ability 6 is a movement speed buff, which you won't ever use. If any of this is confusing or you just want some practice with the drakes, the Aces High daily quest in Kuldara lets you control this same drake and is designed as a practice tool specifically for this fight. On Malygos' end, he will use Arcane Pulse, doing large AoE damage in 30 yards all around him. Because of this, you'll want to make sure that you're never within 30 yards of him, easy enough. During this phase, he will also use Static Field. He will send out a static charge at the location of a random drake that also does AoE damage in a 30-yard radius. It does damage over time and should be moved out of immediately. Lastly, Surge of Power will randomly target 3 drakes, dealing a large amount of damage every half second for 5 seconds. If this ever targets you, use the Flame Shield in your rotation instead of Engulf in Flames or Life Burst to mitigate the damage. Once this phase starts, the raid should stack up on one person. Consider putting a raid marker on this person so that everyone can easily see who they will be following. You can also physically /follow the assigned person, dumbing it down even more so you don't even have to move your own character. The reason for stacking is 1, healers are able to hit everyone in the raid at once when they use Life Burst, and 2, it simplifies the movements in this phase. When Static Field is sent out, it will spawn in the middle of your raid pack since you're all stacked. The raid lead will move left or right, whichever way was decided, to move out of the field. Every time a new one is cast, the raid will sidestep and continue their rotation, which again is 2 Flame Strikes followed by 1 Engulf in Flames for the DPS. When 3 drakes are targeted by Surge of Power, healers be ready to keep those Revivifies stacked up and use Life Burst as often as possible. For the people targeted, remember to use Flame Shield instead of your other finishing moves when this happens to you. And that's about it. Rinse and repeat till the boss is dead. There it is, guys. Malygos is vanquished and the raid is cleared. Click the buttons, leave a comment, and catch a live stream at twitch.tv/AmeTV. That's it for me on this one though, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.